If you've been following Lore by Night for any amount of time, you know that I absolutely love horror. This whole channel is a TTRPG focused YouTube channel that surrounds itself with the most prestigious and, I say more recently, controversial of horror franchises, and really did revitalise the horror genre, specifically in the vampire supernatural realm of things. And I have always loved horror. I love supernatural stuff. I love gothic horror. I love the more romantic areas in it. I love how political it can be. I love thrillers. I love slashers. And I have a huge soft spot for horror that comes out of the various Asian countries. But this isn't talking about any of those. This is actually talking about a subgenre within the horror genre that I have, for most of my life, been avoiding like the plague. Sorry, pun not intended there. And that's to do with zombies. And the reason for that is fairly straightforward, which is the fact that when I was a toddler, my father made me play Resident Evil 3, which has caused some very deep psychological damage. And throughout the course of this year, and perhaps a little bit of next year, I'm wanting to put out various bits of content on YouTube to challenge myself of that in a TTRPG sense, and maybe some video games as well, or whatever I may fancy doing. But this is primarily focusing on the TTRPG aspect of things, and I'm calling this Mission Zombotch. I touch upon this a little bit in a separate video regarding zombies, like how to put zombies in the world of darkness, which is going to be in the corner somewhere now. It might be the other side. Just go and check out which one of those it pops up. And if you read the title of this video or recognise some of the artwork in the video, this is going to be focused on 3 Leagues The Walking Dead. So as per other how-to videos on this channel, I'm going to be putting together the Walking Dead universe campaign in this video, and I'm going to be running it with some people, which is probably going to end up being members of the Lore by Night Discord server, as they seem really keen to be running games with me at the moment and like performing them, as it were, to members of the Lore by Night Discord server. And then telling you how everything went, how I'm putting that all together, and what advice and suggestions I can give you along the way to really make your game stand out. Not just for this particular zombie game, and not just other zombie TTRPGs that are out there, because there are quite a few, but also just games in general, and specifically if you want to focus more on the horror genre. Because something that I have learned a lot over the last few years is that zombies may appear like really bog standard stuff on the surface, but they become a great platform, metaphor, whatever fucking literary device you want to put in its place, that helps you to express certain political and social things within society, good, bad and different. And regarding The Walking Dead, it becomes a wonderful platform to express the ideas of emotion, humanity, morality, and what happens when any of those things are broken within your little groups and pockets of society. So as I was saying, we're going to go things step by step. We're going to talk about how I'm going to put this campaign together, what the general theme and the premise that I'm going to be working with, and we're also going to break up each and every session about how I'm running things, how they went, what I'm going to change into future sessions, and other bits and pieces that come along in the way, so you can have a good understanding about how to run not just this TTRPG and other zombie TTRPGs, but horror games and TTRPGs in general. I don't have much of a campaign idea at the moment, but I know how it's going to start, and from that idea I have developed a whole host of feelings and emotions and a theme that's going to go with that, and I feel very proud about that. Technically this is the wrong thing for me to do, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, but to talk about the premise of the game, I'm calling this game Knock Knock, which is perhaps the most stupid title that I've ever given a campaign, but I feel there's actually going to be quite an invasive theme with this, and I use invasive quite deliberately because the game's going to start of the night of the apocalypse, where everything goes to shit, and I'm going to be setting it at Atlanta, much like the TTRPG does, and of course the comics that it's based upon, and the Telltale Walking Dead games. And it's going to be a group of friends who haven't met up for some time, and they may bring one of their kid if one of them wants to be their kid archetype. They're going to be like bring presents or food or something of that nature, and one by one they're all going to be giving a little on a door, you know, just to open things up, and it's going to be a symbol like hope, happiness. Oh, I wonder who's going to be here. It's, oh, Fred, I haven't seen you in such a long time. Blah, blah, blah. Like lots of conversation there, and depending on the characters that they make, there may be a little bit of drama already that may cause a bit of spice in the future. But as it keeps happening one by one, it's going to be like this friendly symbol. But then as the night goes on and everybody arrives, there's going to be another little on the door, it's going to become more invasive, a lot more loud, a lot more aggressive, and they open the door and the walkers start swarming in that way. And as the game goes on, I want to drop in like this little knocking noise all the way through. So it's not something that the players look forward to, it's something that they dread. And I don't usually follow through games with such a theme or idea in mind, but I think that's a really cool idea, especially with the whole idea with The Walking Dead that trust and security and how society is basically all flipped upon its head. It's going to play a huge part whenever you pick up and run this game. Now, if you follow the rules as written, technically I've already done the game wrong. I know, a gasp. But The Walking Dead's TTRPG actively discourages games masters from actually planning games. You're supposed to come up with some factions and like drop everybody at different coordinates on the map, put some stalkers, swarms about the place as well, and then just finally drop the players in the middle of it and then let their issues and their haven issues and all these other issues and drive the story forward and just let the players explore for reasons. But if you don't give players motivation to do something beyond the very core loop of like fixing up the haven or sorting out a relationship issue or training up the NPCs, which is something that's included in this as well, I don't really see what's making them drive forward, because even with my limited understanding of the TV series and the comic books that they're inspired off of, there's a goal that's pushing them forward. It's like finding safety, reaching a certain place, finding food and resources, and I do think that it's sort of down to the games master to be like giving them those reasons rather than just letting it happen, which is kind of the direction the book goes with. Similarly, when you're making the characters, the games master has to choose like a group of 5 NPCs that are provided in the book with their own issues to hand to the players and to interact with, which I think is a bit weird personally. Like, if you're wanting the characters to connect to the world around you, their own characters and backgrounds, and just a reason to exist rather than just go through the core loop and experience a game with zombies in it and a bit of human drama, then they should go and create their own NPCs, or you have a big old chat together as a group and then the games master gets some inspirations and comes up with a few ideas. And chances are, with the way that players are these days, you're going to get at least 2 that are going to present your whole fucking thesis of their primary school years. So you have loads of ideas to work with, if not for that first immediate session. You'll have a bit more further down the line to experiment with if need be. It kind of gets a bit chaotic when most groups are like between 3 and 5 players already, so you have a lot of NPCs to manage from the get-go, plus all the players. Like, I just think that's a bit of a minefield, on top of all the planning that you expected to do, and map making as well is something that I forgot to mention, which, if you're a lazy games master like me, is less than ideal. So, my advice, which you can take or leave, but I'm assuming that as you've gotten to this point in the video that you are going to at least consider what I'm about to say. When you have everybody making their characters together, I feel this is one of those instances where I think the game will work a lot better if you have everybody make their characters together as a group and you, the games master, can oversee everything. So players can really think about how their characters interact with each other. And I've made it in this particular scenario where they're all friends, or they know each other, they're like from college or school or something, they're having this big old reunion, so there is some history there. So they're going to come into the session 0 thinking about this already, ideally, because I know there's going to be at least one person who's going to sign up and not read anything properly, or at all for that matter. They are players after all. And then encourage the conversation to happen, like how such and such will know such and such, like where do they work, what are their feelings about it, because it's also part of the game where every character's got to know somebody for a different reason, like a different relationship sort of thing, and you then got to make a little relationship map, or rather you should rather make a relationship map so you can keep a good tabs on everyone, like who they know and why, which I don't usually do for games because I can usually keep that shit up there, but given the nature of the game and how the games master's encouraged to come up with factions and NPCs constantly, and as they wander around they're going to meet more people, it's really something that you're going to have to keep an eye on as you're running this, because even though this is not a terribly huge book and there are not a lot of terms of like systems and mechanics, it does expect you to do a lot, which you can take as much or as little as you need to, both its pros and cons for doing so, I suppose. Also, with the nature of this game, depending on the concept that the players come up with,
it's going to help me influence a bit more about where their starting haven's going to be, what they're going to be doing next. So really, I'm going to be improvising shit as much as they are, but at least I have that core idea to drive the story forward, because I think as I've said already, you kind of need to have something for the players to focus on. You need to give something the players to strive for. You need to give them something to go and explore, rather than turning like some weird fucking board game where they go to a square, do a thing, and then come back again. And there may or may not be like people trying to invade or whatever. You do need to come up with some idea. Now, the suggestions that they do provide in the core book of like not providing solutions but come up with problems is fantastic advice. Like, it minimizes like the badder elements of railroading, where players don't feel they have any agency in the world and it's just you pushing the players along. But railroading can be a good thing as well, which I'm actually talking a particularly older video of mine, which is going to appear up there somewhere. So do keep in mind that there should be something that like encourages the players to go and do something to strive forward. Season 1 of the Telltale walking games, they're all trying to get to Savannah to get on a boat out of here. Does it work? Does it fuck? But it gives them something to go for rather than just moving around aimlessly. And yeah, they go to a haven, they find a safe spot, but it gets trashed by bandits and walkers galore. Season 2 is similar as well, but from Clementine's perspective, she's moving around with some different people trying to work out who she can fucking trust, and those people like insist of taking off somewhere for safety, and then they meet with another group of people and they decide to go to a place called Wellington, which gives them something to push forward and go to, so they have something to strive and work forward. And I think that's really important to have that as like a very simple goal and objective, something to work forward, which gives the players a reason to fucking come back and play, rather than, as I said, like this constant back and forth, just doing this like seemingly nonsensical base building thing if there's no reason for it other than just to keep the fucking game rolling. And when you have your players, your NPCs, your factions, and you know a bit about how everyone works, or at least enough to feel confident to start running it, and you're able to get on with that first session, you'll be able to plan a bit more of an outline for a campaign, or a scenario if you follow the game's like a scenario mode sort of thing. But where this is focusing more on the campaign / freestyle mode, which I don't know why Free League decided to make it really awkward and just not go with one-shots or campaigns like literally every fucking other person in the TTRPG space, but that's a conversation for a different fucking time. Like, plan a bit of an outline, give you something to work with so you feel a bit more comfortable as well, because not everybody likes to like go completely against the wind and like improvise everything on the fly and just like drop and move the different chess pieces about randomly. Like, give yourself something to work with so you have some control over things as well, and it's not just seemingly random, and it makes the players feel that they're actually working towards something, and they have those challenges and they have those hardships and the death and the blood and the guts and all the other things that makes The Walking Dead interesting as a franchise, beyond it just being a zombie cow that's been milked dry. It's about human suffering, conflict, emotions, humanity, and all those weird, bloody, grey moral bits. And as I don't have players at the moment, I can't really plan anything beyond my initial starting point. And really, you can't properly plan a game beyond the first scene of the first session. Like, you can probably guess where things are going to go, depending on how much you do or don't know the players. But it's important to be malleable, so if things go left when you expected it to go right, or vice versa, you're able to adapt quickly, not feel too overwhelmed with that. But once I've gathered some players, have an understanding about how they work, get the relationship map and all that stuff, I'm going to show you what all of that's going to look like, but more importantly, we're going to go through how I'm going to plan an outline for the campaign for my game of The Walking Dead.
Before we outline the campaign proper, I want to talk a bit more about the players for a moment, or specifically the player size, because despite being a little frustrating, which I'll touch upon in just a moment, it has reminded me of a very valid point that you should really take into consideration running The Walking Dead for the very first time, or any TTRPG for that matter. And when I advertised this game on the Law by Night Discord server, I advertised it originally for 5 players. And whilst I did get those 5 players, 2 of which dropped out within days because they remembered that they had commitments going on Saturday, and the impression that I just kind of got is that, oh, they just wanted to be in a game with your Lord and Saviour and didn't bother fucking reading things properly, which I suppose is this my equivalent of failing from success? And as I said, it's a bit frustrating that, you know, there could have been other people that could have joined up or whatever, but that's fine. I could easily recruit more, but I'm quite happy with the 3 remaining players, because less is often more. And with a game like The Walking Dead, where those human interactions are super vital to the role-playing experience, a core part of The Walking Dead, I think it works well in its favour. So you, the games master, could focus a lot more on those emotional interactions with your player characters, on top of the fact that if you treat the rules as written, raw, as it were, you have to dump 5 pre-generated NPCs at the player for them to instantly fall in love with, which I think is such a cack-handed way of dealing that. So when I start running the game and dealing with a session 0, I'm going to be fucking ignoring that. I'm going to encourage the players to come up with an NPC or 2 when they're designing their character, just to make it more natural, so they can like blend in with the group a bit more, which makes a lot more fucking sense to me. So if we compare this to another TTRPG, just that might be a bit more familiar to some of those regular viewers on the channel, Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition encourages the player vampires to come up with a human touchstone that keeps them grounded to their humanity, so they don't go too far astray from their morals, whether they're good, bad or indifferent, so they don't become true fiends. Now, admittedly, the anchor system with The Walking Dead isn't mechanically as nuanced as that, but I think it's worth keeping that in mind. So when you're creating your characters, they're not just like another set of stats on a sheet, but they're actually part of that character. It's their fucking purpose to be living in this world, their safe spot, their haven, that home is far more than just a roof and a building. Whilst that sort of thing is nice, a home is where the heart is, as Bobby Womack once beautifully sung and screamed. And if I was going to be doing things as written and sticking to my 5 player characters, what would happen is that at a minimum, from the get-go, I would be dealing with 10 characters all at once and trying to integrate 10 different stories, issues, successes and all the rest of that into the campaign, which I feel is just a little bit fucking silly, and for anyone to be dealing with from the get-go, it's rather overwhelming. It's a bit much. So less is more is definitely the way that we should be going here, in my totally biased opinion. Furthermore, having such a large group of players in a zombie apocalypse scenario may diminish the horror a little bit. Sure, not everybody's going to be going out and exploring and scavenging all the time, but knowing that you've got such numbers to fall back on from the get-go makes things far too safe, I feel. At least that's, as I said, as I feel. It's my opinion. It's my tutorial to you lot. So starting the game with a smaller group of players, and thus a smaller group of NPCs, can make it far more dangerous, because you don't have so many people to look out for you. And there's also the fact that not every NPC and or anchor is going to be somebody that likes you. Because remember, they don't have to be people that you like, which makes things a bit tricky. If you've got 2 anchors, a player character and an NPC, that hate you, it means you can't regain stress from your anchors, which makes things very spicy indeed. And I'll be curious to see that when I run the session 0, that I've got one of my 3 players will do something as spicy as this. I have my doubts, but I'm more than welcome to be proven wrong here and to be surprised delightfully.
So in between the section that you've just watched and this section of this chapter of this YouTube video, I cancelled the Discord game, which was mainly down to people demonstrating their incapability of reading my very simple instructions and completely wholesale forgetting they had things going on the days that I wanted to run the game and record it, because this was going to be an actual play as well, and one player dictating how sober they were going to be when they turned up to the game, which is different to, you know, meeting up with friends and having a bit too much to drink, getting a bit tipsy here and there, but not turning up to a game saying you're not going to be 100% with it, on top of the fact this is going to be recorded as well on my Discord thing, which was in front of a live audience. That's a bit fucking wild to me, and I won't lie, I did find that a little triggering. Now, I didn't expect the players to know this, but I wasn't expecting that sort of thing to come up in fucking conversation. So, here we are in 2025, where we have to tell people that it's not okay to come to a session completely pissed out your brains or with a hangover. But here we are, I guess. So, well, this led me down to a conversation that I was having with people that, just through chance, who I hadn't heard from in donkey's years, just chatting about this, that and the other, like a general chit-chat thing. I wasn't seeking them out for this sort of thing. But some of them were aware that I was doing YouTube things and thought it was all Dungeons and Dragons, which made me feel a bit sick, and I retched a little, playfully, just. And I was telling them about the sort of things I do, and I mentioned a whole host of tabletop role-playing games that I have, and they sort of latched onto The Walking Dead, funny enough. Or like the TV show. Yes, exactly like the TV show. It's based off the TV show. And they seemed a bit really keen, like, how difficult is it to play? I said, well, you need 6-sided dice, and you're looking for 6s and above, and there's some other bits and pieces as well, but I would run it and like tell you how to play and re-run this story together if you wanted to, and they seemed really fucking down for it, which is great. So I then got them a copy of the book, PDF. We had this conversation in the Facebook Messenger group, and then as I was doing this, I was plotting out this very relationship map in Canva. Yes, I know it has a load of AI stuff associated with it. Most of it is the premium stuff, so unless you're paying for it, you don't have access to it, and I don't use the AI stuff anyway, so the only thing I have the premium account for is to be able to remove backgrounds and to upload custom fonts, of which 2 of these are. But here it is. I don't usually make relationship maps, but from everything we've been talking about already, I think it makes a lot of sense just to make everybody aware of everyone's relations between the other player characters and the NPCs, especially if you're doing it as written, where you have like these 5 NPCs to be working with, all their issues and the drives and how they're all connected to each other sort of thing. But for this, I was staying with the typical, in this case, 4 players and then an NPC who they're connected to or they have some sort of feelings to. At the start of the campaign, I was still running the same game for them. So we have these, obviously the character names, not the player names, but we have Sammy, who was the nobody, we have Jackson, who was a law enforcer, budding cop, and Nika, who's a very interesting character. They are they're not so much attached to everybody else, but they were connected to them because Jackson had this idea of being like a gooder cop sort of thing, because they kind of know my opinions about cops in general. So they wanted to be like a cop that can make a difference to the city, who then could make a difference to the apocalypse, a bit like Rick Grimes, hopefully not losing both of his arms. Well, one of his arms actually. And that sort of encouraged this player to have this idea, well, maybe I could be like this sort of druggy, homeless sort of person, and you found me, you've taken me in and looked after me sort of thing, like, as I get myself back on my feet. And it caused a bit of controversy because some people may not like that, which in turn inspired the Bruce here as a scientist, who these 2 characters, Jackson and Bruce, are brothers. Whilst Jackson's a bit more open to the idea, Bruce finds them a bit untrustworthy drug-related stuff. Which I thought was a very interesting mix, and this might be a bit difficult to read, but we're going to go through everyone's connections to everything. We sort of talked about it a little bit. Sammy and Jackson decide they're going to be partners. Well, they were in a relationship. Jackson's feelings for Sammy's are still a lot stronger to Sammy's, and Sammy's a bit more wary of Jackson for reasons that the players hadn't quite worked out. But I'm loving the fact that despite players hadn't played before, which I forgot to mention, none of them had played TTRPGs before. I think I kind of alluded to that, but if I wasn't clear, these lot have not played TTRPGs before. They only have experience from Stranger Things. One of them had mentioned Critical Role, but I don't think they actually sat down and watched it. So these 2 are like a lover sort of thing, and Nika decided they were going to have a bit of a crush on Sammy because they'd recently come out as bi. Great for them, and thought that would cause some interesting drama for these characters, which then fed into Jackson going, well, maybe my character has a crush on your one, which just further adds the fire. I'm loving that they're thinking about all this stuff already, just making things really believable. It also makes me feel pretty good as a games master that I was able to convey all of this in a way that these new players could really get into the role. And of course they had experience of the TV show, so they were kind of aware of these dynamics already, but that doesn't necessarily carry through into the TTRPG sphere. And just to rein things back in a little bit, if you're doing this as like with them and the 5 NPCs, or you're doing it in a manner that I'm doing it here, where you're just like having them connect to someone, make it really clear that, to make sure that you don't just focus on like the anchors as like a game mechanic thing. You really have a talk about what's everyone's viewpoint or another, how do they feel about each other. And sure enough, you just give the players those creative juices, they go and create a fucking minefield of like story plots for you for the games master, because there are going to be situations here where I'm going to drive a fucking wedge through those 3 in particular. Like, these 2 probably have a bit of an issue here. Sammy's best friend is Bruce. They're both best friends to each other, and I've put the anchor thing here because Sammy's anchor is Bruce and Jackson's anchor is Sammy. It's not very clear, and I did have to hesitate a little bit, but that's how I've made sense of it, really. And that one's in quotes because I thought it was funny that Sammy just had this nice caring idea which has been misconceived as them having a bit of a crush on them, but whether they actually want to pursue that or not is a totally different matter. So that was just a bit of a joke that I can fix, you know, that bit of a social media trope sort of thing. And Anika feels indebted to Jackson, which doesn't necessarily mean that they like them, is something that I've made a mental note of. It seems a bit friendly at the moment, but that could be taken advantage of depending on what the players want to do. These lot really want to go the full hand with all of this, in that they have this idea that if their character dies in the game that they won't make another one. It's like, sure, like, you can make another one, it's not, you are allowed to do that, but no, they want to experience like the brutality that really make it matter, not just feel a bit trivial just making character after character after character, which is absolutely fine, but I don't recommend you do this with most groups, because I feel most people, especially in today's environment, would find that just a little bit frustrating. But as a point I feel that I'm going to mention at least once in this video, you're playing a zombie apocalypse game, and if you're not prepared to embrace the trauma and the horror of like dying pretty fucking quickly and brutally, then what the fuck are you even doing? Especially with The Walking Dead, where your characters can die from a walker in a dice roll. Like, walker combat with this is not like a traditional combat, it's treated like a group sort of thing, and players collectively have to beat a certain number of successes depending on how many walkers on there and the ongoing threat level. And if they don't do that, or they botch a roll, or rolling a walker as it's called, or messing up, they then get attacked. And some of the latter D6 rolls, it's just an instant death scenario, and they really want to embrace that, which is courageous, especially for first time players of TTRPGs. But I can fucking respect that, because I think in today's environment, I think players feel a bit more coddled with their characters, and they may not necessarily embrace the idea of death, and may feel that they should be immortal a bit more, but that's a conversation for a different time. So we sort of got these ideas around the different characters, so let's have a look at the NPCs surrounding them. I'm going to start with Sammy. Now, Sammy's concept is that they're this track star racer sort of thing, and they had this idea that they had an injury, or they dropped out, or maybe it was a bit of both. They weren't feeling as infused and they weren't able to do it, and the mum saw that as a personal slight upon them, that sees them as a disappointment. And Sammy feels very upset and angry and bitter and maybe even guilty, you know, like disappointing the mum. But that was the like core emotion. Like, the player had mentioned like a load of other different emotions, but the core thing is guilty. But I imagine these two are going toe to toe sort of thing, especially in the beginning of the apocalypse. Like, I was thinking about having an argument. No, Sammy goes off in this strop like, I fucking hate you, man, and that's the last time they speak to each other before everything goes to hell, which is very spicy indeed. And of course, I'm as a horror GM, that's the thing that you've got to do here. And who knows, they may pop up in a faction later on, which I will talk about in just a moment. We're moving over to Jackson. They've got a partner who doesn't really see them as like a serious thing, like not wanting to commit. They mentioned that they've recently been playing Catherine in the conversation, so I think that just sort of was inspired a little bit, like, because in that game with Catherine, Vincent doesn't want to commit to marriage, and the whole game's like got choosing the side. Do you want to be free and childish and reckless, or commit sort of thing? There's a lot more to it there. There's a lot of conversation to be had, but that's a conversation for a different time. Probably not on this channel, but if you want me to do a little review analysis of the video game Catherine, do let me know in the comments below. And of course, the partner Poppy wants more out of the relationship, and I think it'll be interesting to see, like, if these two hook up and then they meet, what sort of drama that may unfold from that. And then we move over to Anika and Hugh, and these two, not great couple at all, like very pushy, made her the druggie that she is, you know, I want to kill you, and terrified of him. The players, I'm too sure about what made them finally run away and snap, but they'll let me know before the first session, which is absolutely fine. But Hugh looks like they're going to be an antagonist to me, so they may have like a proper role in a faction, which again I will talk about in a moment. But yeah, I feel that if any of one in this is going to be a major issue, I feel it's going to be Hugh. And then Bruce had an interesting idea that they had a father figure rather than a father, like their biology scientist teacher, and also had the very interesting risque idea like Dr. Lynch, like loving Bruce, you know, like the age gap university thing. It's a little different, it's a bit dark and fucked up, and I don't know what to do with them at the moment. I might bring them on, I might make them a walker, but there's going to be some mixed feelings there. Maybe they could be like exploring a university or something, and they find like diary notes or something. Because again, this is 2003, so having things logged onto a computer isn't so straightforward as it would be in later years. But yeah, that is basically it. We've got a group of 4 players here that wants to go full ham, don't want me to hold anything back with the descriptors and things. I'm expecting something really fucking twisted and spiky with these two. And yeah, I don't really know what to do at this point beyond what I have listed in my faction notes and how I want to start the session, which is a similar sort of a knock-knock party sort of scenario. I think I may start it at one of these 2 houses, because I think that might be the better place to start it. Probably Bruce. He might have like an apartment or something that he's living in, and maybe he's finished his course, like his biology course thing, and they're celebrating him finally passing. Like, these lot moved on a lot quicker. Maybe he's a bit younger, because I'm presuming they're all like the similar sort of ages sort of thing. But I don't know, I think like them celebrating like some sort of achievement course sort of thing is in order. I think that makes sense, like, because I don't think like these 2 holding a house together with that is going to be a good idea, and I want to keep them separate. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll have them, these 3, move to that person there. That's going to be some very exciting stuff here. And it also gives me a chance to have these 3 roleplay by themselves, these 2 together or separately, and have them have that conversation with their mum before going off in that shop that I mentioned. Yeah, I think that's going to work rather nicely. Now, factions. If you're playing the Walking Dead RPG as written, you will have to come up with a minimum of 3 factions, which has its own little process, which is mainly in the form of rolling a variety of D6 tables and a D66 table, I believe, at one point. Which I do and don't like. I like the randomness of doing this. I love rolling in random tables, doing a lot of solo play. But doing it like that, and the book itself not actually giving you a lot of tools to like brew and think and or ponder, why is this faction going to involve itself in the game? How does it make sense? Because it doesn't want you to plan games traditionally, that you're supposed to drop things on the map and blah blah blah. But I'm not doing it as written as much, and as I've mentioned already, you really should try and give them some sort of goal to work towards beyond just surviving. Like, give them the fucking drama. So I've got 2 factions here, and at first they seemed quite differently, but I found a way to connect them, and I think it works quite nicely. And I've written in some like pencil notes here that I can barely read. So we've got one group who I haven't named either group yet. That'll probably come later. This group is a large one, about 30 to 40 people. They have multiple rulers and they have servants. And I had this idea, okay, this probably is the one that Hugh's going to be a part of, and I rolled on an oracle thing. Is this Hugh's group? Yes. Is he in charge? No. But then with that thing, rulers and servants, okay, is Hugh one of the leaders? And that came up with the result of yes. So, okay, so I came up with like 3 different leaders, and Hugh is one of them. And with that in mind, I then had this idea, like a really archaic, like, men live like kings, the women and the children are the servants, and it's men that go out and fight and the women stay behind and protect whatever they have. They have strict rules, which makes sense. They have lots of food, but they're looking for more food, which means they're just stealing everything and taking it for themselves. Naturally, they're going to be divided by conflict, and they left the old world and morals behind, which is where I got that women and children as slaves idea from. And they've got a barricaded house of walkers outside of a defense of 3 and a capacity of 2. So kind of messed up, really. A fairly large group, but not like the largest it could be in that game setting. It's pretty dark and messed up, and I imagine them, as I was doing this, like stealing people or offering sanctuary like to families and whatnot, and then instantly splitting them up just so the men could live like kings, which sort of fits the description that we were conjuring up with Hugh. And the players don't know about any of this yet. That's going to come later in game, hopefully. But I wasn't quite too sure how that was going to mix with the group, other than the fact that 2 of them are women and 2 of them are male. And I should mention that they've all got like the traditional he, him, she, her pronouns. There's none of the other non-binary mixes in there. And then we've got this other group who's much smaller. They've got like a doctrine of code. There's about 10 of them. They need food, but they have managed to get themselves on a farm. And their issue is they've got children there, which is when the brain juices start to go on there. And that's got a similar defense and capacity rating of 3 and 2 respectively. And I rolled on a dice here for each of the 2 female NPCs, Sammy's mum and Poppy. The mum is not in this group, but Poppy is. And then I did a separate thing, is Poppy in charge of this group, thinking it wasn't going to be very likely, and sure enough, this is Poppy leading the group here. So I then had this idea that these 2 groups are connected, in that And this is when I had the idea of these two groups being connected. Maybe it was Poppy that had the idea, you know, the wife of the cop, she had a bit of gun experience, a little bit, maybe a bit tougher than other household wives would sort of be. But she, like, maybe staged a rebellion, or, like, not so much a rebellion, but, like, was able to get like 10 or so people out, and their weird doctrine code thing is that with this farm, they're a bit more lax, they just want the children to play and have a bit more of a life, not really treating things as serious as they should do, because the safety and security that they may have. So that could be an interesting plot point, like our group of four here goes to them, as well as the aforementioned drama with the Jackson, Anika, Poppy triangle thing, like, hey, you really need to tighten things up a little bit. Hey, you really need to teach people how to use guns, including the children, in case something bad happens to them. And that could cause a bit of drama that way. And you've got Hugh's faction, who may find all of them and, like, rein them all in sort of thing. And then there's another bit of conflict. And I think that's where the conflict with Hugh's faction has come from, that these 10 had escaped. And it's sort of like bubbles of a little rebellion or sorts, and then returning, they could kickstart something. They could either force everybody who believes this to fuck off, or they can rein everybody in and they could just work together, because they could have the resources and the food. They've got loads of food between all of them, and from my understanding and conjuring and bullshitting, Hugh's faction's got a bit more experience with the weapons, so they could work together to come up with a much larger faction, about 44 people, if I just do the approximate maths, and that could actually lead to a nice conclusion of the thing, and they're able to unite the people together, or stage a rebellion with, like, the two different factions, as it were, or ideologies battling each other. Or maybe the mum's in one group somehow. I'm not too sure how the mum and Dr. Lynch is going to come into this, because I haven't done a roll to determine that yet. But we've got something to work with here. Even me doing, and again, I will mention, just me doing as much as I am is technically against the ethos of the Walking Dead RPG, but it doesn't make much sense to me just, like, dropping everybody in a sandbox and just letting them get onto it and just, like, wandering in different directions and just hoping for the best. It just seems a bit weird to me, and hopefully we can come up with a scenario where our four are going to be on the road quite a lot, and because Sam is a nobody, they have a car or a van, I believe, so they may end up being in that van for quite a bit. There may be like a little safe haven for them. In fact, they might actually end up being their haven if things go really badly. So I'll let you know how things get on as we unwind this Walking Dead campaign.
So the first session is done, and that went in so many different wild directions, all praised, by the way. I absolutely love how these noobs have really taken this into their stride and made it their own. As the group, as I've mentioned already, are students, and, you know, they're just celebrating Bruce's graduation, you know, from being some biology expert doctor thing, even though he's a scientist, biological, you know what I'm trying to say here. I decided it was going to have the party at his place, or an apartment that he is staying at, and he started off by doing all the little bits of time now just to make the thing as presentable as possible, and I made him do a mobility roll here for a couple of reasons. The first of which, because, you know, there was an objective to be made here that he could not be ready in time, and it just looks a little bit shit, which adds a little bit of pressure onto that. And the second reason is I think it was a very consequence-free way of teaching the very simple mechanics of the dice rolls, that you're looking for sixes, anything else is bad. You could push for the roll if you really want to, but that adds a point of stress. And I very nearly actually gave him a point of stress just because of, like, how stressed he was role-playing his character to be. Because whilst the book gives a whole load of suggestions of how one can accumulate stress, I encourage the games master to come up with a load of their own, especially in this scenario. Like, any and all sorts of outside influence could definitely contribute to some form of stress, especially if you're doing what I'm doing, and it's putting people at the beginning of the apocalypse itself. And something like this, as I've hinted at already, kind of serves as a pretty neat tutorial. You know, as I said, it's all consequence-free, so it doesn't matter too much at the moment if you fuck up. But that being said, somebody would push a roll very shortly on, and that would have a load of really interesting consequences. I decided that Sammy was going to be the first player to show up because they are the most eager to leave their home, because you may recall they have a bit some issues with their mother. Sammy being like a failed college student dropout tracker player sort of thing. Mum hoped for the best. The daughter ended up not being the best, and there's a bit of resentment there, and there was some beautiful role-playing there between Sammy and I, which of course took on the NPC of Sammy's mother. Now, it was all a little awkward to begin with, I think, but at least from the player's perspective, because again, they're brand new to this and haven't done any of this role-playing malark before, or at least not since they were fucking kids. But, you know, they took the bull by the horns and they really went for it, and I feel that at one point I was like hit a raw nerve, but everybody seemed to be fine because I checked with everybody, you know, making sure everyone was all hunky-dory. But no, they were just really getting into the characters, and I just absolutely fucking love that. It's really fucking awesome shit. So they arrived as quick as they could, like pinching like their mum's alcohol. I think it was Jack Daniels, I don't remember exactly what there was. Some celebratory drinks, you know, so can't have a party without getting absolutely shit-faced, I believe was the phrase that they used. And then I had Jackson and Anika arrive together. Now, I'm going to have to put a content warning for this video now, because in between the session 0 and the first session, you may recall that Anika wanted to do something to spice up their gameplay, like to try and work out what exactly that there is running away from, other than, you know, their partner being an abusive piece of shit, like what forced them to leave. And Anika decided that their character was 3 months pregnant, but they didn't want me to tell the group because they wanted it to be a bit of a surprise, so they weren't like... They wanted it to feel real, which I absolutely love as a games master. However, because of this, I don't want to subject you, my dear viewers, to anything bad that may happen, because, as you may have gathered, I record these videos as they're happening, so I don't know what's going to be happening yet. So there may be some harm to the baby, there may be harm to the mother. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with pregnancy now, and when I accelerate the plot forward a little bit, there is a 1 in 6 chance, well, maybe 2, maybe 3 in 6 chance, a 50% chance that she may go into labour, and all of this lovely stuff that goes with that. So if that sort of potentiality may be triggering for you, or you just don't want to know about it for whatever reason, I would suggest giving this video a miss, or doing whatever you need to do to prepare yourself if you want to carry on watching this video. But of course, as we've already discussed, they're not going to hold anything back. They don't want me to hold anything back, which is fine. Everyone's all happy-dory with this. But anyway, they wanted me to try and like hint at a couple of points. So I said they felt a bit queasy, like a bit morning sickness sort of thing. And if there was a role that they could do to resist like throwing up or whatever. And I thought, yeah, sure, give me an endure roll. They failed, they pushed the rolls to get a bit of stress. But on that stress die, they rolled a walker, which means they rolled a 1 on the stress die, which meant that the walkers were going to appear. Because I had everything at like threat level 0. Upped it to 1. I rolled on the side, so it was about 50, I believe the max was. Now, I didn't want to introduce the walkers that earlier on, but when the 2 girls of the group went off, you know, for girl stuff, you know, to like calm each other down and whatnot, because they had some pretty shitty experiences, I had them roll, I believe it was a survival or scout roll, I can't remember which one of the 2 it was, to see if they could notice people. Sammy didn't, Anika did. And Anika's noticed there was like some people lumbering about, but they couldn't see. They felt, oh, it's just probably like people mulling about from the pub or whatever, because they didn't quite get enough successes, which is a lovely bit of foreshadowing, I think. Now, I feel that I should mention, and I haven't told the players the name of the campaign, that it's just a Walking Dead TTRPG session. So when I told Sammy's player that there wasn't a doorbell and you just have to knock on the door, I feel that's going to heighten things quite a lot, because they knew that zombies were coming. The players could think, oh right, there's zombies about, but we just haven't seen them yet, and they're getting quite spooked by it. Bruce and Jackson were having a bit of a heart-to-heart. Bruce again was like saying that, why did you be her? We don't really know her. What if she started getting all drunk and shit? Because remember, Bruce's character's a bit more judgmental about Anika's predicament. Jackson's got a bit of a crush on her. He sort of resists, you know, the standing up to her for the time being, because he's got a bit of a crush on her. And there was another little knock on the door. And I wanted the players to think it was one or two things. It was either the girls that had come back to let themselves in, or it was the zombies. And they, you know, rolled and thought, hold on, this doesn't sound quite right. You know, they were ready for action. And I introduced like this hobo guy who like pesters the people in these apartments, you know, to give him money. And Jackson, being a cop, he used some of his cop rolling skills to force the hobo to fuck off, which created a lovely bit of tension, like a false scare. And I think you should put a few of those in your games, not just with The Walking Dead, but with horror in general. Because again, we're establishing that knocking thing as a thing of safety, and we're going to break that down. So we're already doing that there. It doesn't have to be such a on-the-nose thing, but do give them false expectations, set them up and knock them back down a little bit. And this particular example is particularly fun because being a homeless person, you know, they're typically dirty, grimy, their clothes may be all raggedy, they're all skin and bone, like, they kind of look like the Walking Dead of themselves. I fed that into a bit, and just when I think they're about to do something stupid, I then go, it makes you jump, but no, it's just old man Hankins who, you know, and then it's all played along with it. It's like, I very nearly gave them a point of stress with that one just because of how on the edge they were with it, which I'm really happy about. That was a very last minute decision. I thought, oh, I could do this right now. Like, go with the moment, like embrace the chaos is how we do things on Lord by Night. So they deal with that, the cop does his thing, the group comes back together, and then they play party games, and I do some generic dice rolls again. That's familiarising everybody about how the dice work, just making people aware about pushing the roll is not just re-rolling the dice and hoping for the best, that you physically have to do something. Like with Anika, who was trying to resist herself from throwing up, she was kind of embracing that she was going to throw up now, but she had the idea, okay, could I at least try and do this to get away, to hide it, and like pretend that nothing's happening? Yeah, you absolutely can. That makes sense to me, which is amazing shit, really. And then we had a bit of an argument because Anika decided in character, you know, to like congratulate Bruce for everything he did, but Bruce's character like played along with it, you know, hiding his you know, true emotions, which Anika picked up on, which wasn't going to mention. Jackson wanted to do a similar sort of role, and they did pick it up, but they decided to launch at Bruce about it, and the two had an in-game argument about it. Anika then joined in because, you know, oh, I don't need anyone protecting me sort of thing, blah blah blah. I noticed that Sammy was particularly quiet during all of this, so this is when I introduced the zombies. And I think Games Master should do this. If you've got like a group of characters that are doing something, or players who are leading the conversations, being the more active parties, highlight the quiet ones, get them to like reveal the plot and push things forward. I had them try and work out like more knocking that was coming from outside the house. Now unfortunately for Sammy, they didn't actually do very well here. They didn't get any successes even with pushing the roll, and that was to identify whether they could notice that there was something at the windows and the doors, but they didn't. So at this point the zombies started to come through the windows, not through the door, because I actually wanted them to escape. And I should also highlight that the stress from this point onwards was skyrocketing, because everybody was arguing on edge. I gave everybody a point of stress. Sammy had to push the roll, so that point went up by 1 as well. Walkers arrived, there's another point of stress. So by the end of the session, everybody had like 4 or 5 points of stress amongst them. And The Walking Dead's a little unusual in that there isn't like a limit to how much stress that you have. You can only like knock down bits and pieces here and there, or if you spend time in a specific time frame with an anchor, you can get rid of all of it. So it's can be a lot of dice you'll be throwing around in this game, but that just works really well here, because you can do really well like Anika did, who from this point onwards would only get a minimum of 5 fucking successes with everything that they did. But it got very stressful for the player's perspective as they had to try and fight off walkers. Jackson, who was the most competent with firearms, rolled a walker, which meant that he got a single attack by a walker. You have to roll on a D6 table. Hit his head, got a dirty wound, and was basically out fucking cold, which left Anika to practically save everyone, and Bruce to drag the body out of the door. Because remember, The Walking Dead, only 3 combatants fight the zombies at once, which I sort of allowed here, that the 4th player could go ahead and do his own sort of thing, because it didn't make sense that he could just be like left around like twiddling his thumbs for a little bit. So he was able to open the door. There weren't too many zombies out there, or rather a number of zombies that would indicate that I'm throwing him into his own separate bit of combat and apply different modifiers. And because Jackson was out for the count, it did mean that the 2 in the combat scenarios, the 2nd player had a -2 modifier, and I think it was at this point that Sammy got bit, and they had their toe bitten, and that was infected, and that had to be amputated like moments later when everybody rushed in the back of the van that Sammy was borrowing from the family, because they decided the group were going to go away on a bit of a camping trip, which is why you had like this weird collection of items together, like had 10 guns and whatnot, you know, just in case something untoward comes to surprise them. That's something that I had decided, and everybody thought that made a lot of sense. Bruce, having some medical skills, was able to quickly patch up Jackson. I gave them a first aid kit just for the narrative perspective, because I think it was not very fair at this point not giving them stuff. I know I said I was going to be like brutal, not like save their lives or anything, but I think it made sense that at this moment we'd have a first aid kit, you know? We also had a successful amputation roll, which is the weirdest fucking sentence I think that's come out of this whole video. But you know, that's the joy of TTRPGs. You say the weirdest ass shit, and it feels like the most normal ass fucking shit. But there was also a lovely bit of roleplay about that as well. I don't want to lose any toes, take me to a hospital, take me to a hospital. And everyone's like, no, we're fucked, like, we can't guarantee that you're going to be safe, that we have to deal with this now. Who knows if it's like going to infect you or anything. That just heightened things even further. So they did that, and now we've got a group minus a toe, which is a, again, weird fucking sentence. So Anika at the van, like seeing hundreds, possibly thousands of zombies, like narrowly missing with very good driving rolls. I was going to like introduce like some more conundrums, like they see like a mother and a kid sort of thing. Although I did throw bits of in that here and there. I was expecting like to get on and try and save something. Like, is there anybody we could save sort of thing? But no, they didn't. And what must have taken up the last 45 minutes of the session was just the group role-playing amongst themselves. No mechanics, no real dice rolls, there wasn't any actually. They were just talking about life, the universe, like loved ones, like such and such being okay. Because remember, this is 2003, it wasn't so easy to, you know, check up on loved ones. And with 1,000 zombies and droves around them, it was just impossible to go and check up on them, and it just caused quite a whole mixture of emotions. And I can't guarantee this, but I'm pretty sure that there was near tears going on, or a couple of tears here and there, and I feel pretty proud that I was able to like cause such positively sad, unhopeful, borderline nihilistic feelings. It was just wonderful to see, and you may be thinking, Lord, that is a fucking long time to let the players just waffle on doing their thing, but I implore all fucking games masters just to know when to shut the fuck up and just let the players breathe and exist, because they're having a fun time. It doesn't really matter what they're doing at that point. Like, you've achieved good games master if everybody's having a fun time, and especially when they get so into the setting, so into the character, that they feel a bit weepy or they're beginning to cry. And I was trying to think, well, how can I shape this up just a little bit, or like leave as a cliffhanger, because I was going to do like a big old time jump, as I've mentioned already. And it was the one player, the driver, then decided to announce that they were 3 months pregnant. And that's when I ended the session, which was so fucking dramatic. And I'm not crying now, I mean, it's fucking hot out, I'm just sweating my nuts off. But like, wow, that was a real fuck. And it was just so out of the blue, because this character, funny enough, was the one that had stayed mostly quiet, and there's a bit of a pause. I was just about to say something, and then they said that, and I was like, wait, what? So yeah, that's gonna be really fucking spicy. We now reach a part of the video we answered the question, why is this How to Run the Walking Dead TTRPG so fucking short, or at least in comparison to the other How to Run games videos that I've done. And it's simply because this session was actually the last one that I did, so rather than being like the larger campaign free mode that I was intending it to be, it actually ended up as being like a in sort of survival scenario mode sort of thing, where I experienced my first TPK, which it means Team Party KO, or Knockout, if you want to be really hip and gangster with it. I have no idea why I did that, but I'm not just going to fucking stay in now, I'm just going to fucking roll with it, which is how I actually came up with the opening and, I guess, final scene for the second session. I rolled and a double high, which, if you don't know or forget, one of the many rolls that you can do in this book is a double high and a double low. Double low is that you roll 2d6 and you take the lowest number, and the double high is the similar premise, but you take the highest number. But both dice I rolled was 4, so we're 4 months into the future, which puts us towards the end of November, beginning of December. So I was expecting things to get a bit cooler, but I rolled up in some weather. It was windy but sunny, but did play into the element a bit more that it was going to be a little bit colder. Rations were scarce, the van was on its last legs, it was practically on fumes, they couldn't drive much more, you know, etc. and so forth. Which all put everybody in a difficult position, that they could abandon the van or try and find supplies, and there was a lovely bit of role play with all of that. And it was Anika's play, which was the only one that wasn't too sure about leaving, and she had taken up the more leader role, as I suspected would happen, because she's 7 months preggers now, which puts her in a really fucking precarious situation. you know, and they were fairly safe where they are at the moment, in sort of a swampy area, which again is something that I rolled up using some of the tables found within the core book. But they did eventually decided to leave and set out on foot to find some more supplies or anything, etc. You know, taking what they could and leaving it for the van for somebody to take, or if they find the parts, repair the van themselves, which I didn't think was going to happen. I was aiming for more to find a place to stay and hunker down, where one of the groups would find the players and then they can decide what to do with them. And I had them traverse this sort of swampy area, and one of the players asked, "Are there any walkers about?" And I actually hadn't fucking considered that, honestly. I was just going to make it more like a survival, like trekking across the swamping plains and letting the dice decide that. So whilst they did their scout roll to see if everything was safe, I then rolled on one of the tables in the core book to decide whether there were walkers about, and there were. Which is where things began to go wrong. Fortunately, they had a small size, but that didn't really fucking matter in the end because they still fucking died to walkers. It's so fucking funny, but a little frustrating on my end as well. So between the players, they were able to work out that there were walkers in the actual swamp itself, because there's a couple moments in the Telltale video games where you do actually see walkers just surviving or thriving underwater through one scenario or another, and I thought having that there would like spook the players a little bit. It doesn't happen in the comics from what I recall. Like there's a moment towards the end where a load of zombies get pushed into the sea, but they don't encounter like aquatic zombie sort of thing. They don't really go across those sorts of environments, which I think is a little interesting. But the swamp thing kind of threw them a little bit, so now they had an element of like getting around the zombies so they weren't being seen. So I had to remind them, just because there's a bunch of them about doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come after you. If you're able to sneak around them properly, you should be alright. And I thought this was going to be a really fucking simple role, to be honest. But I will mention that because they saw walkers, I've got to give them that 1 point of stress, because with the time jump I removed everybody's stress. And Sammy's play was the only one that did well. This was a really good role for them, and they got like 3 or 4 successes. Jackson and Bruce didn't get any, so I thought, okay, you're just going to get stuck in the mud. Like, it wasn't a walker, like they didn't mess up, so it wasn't going to increase the threat level. However, it was Anika's player that rolled the walker, and because they rolled a walker, they couldn't push the roll. Like, that's it, that's them falling into the fucking swamp. Threat level now gone up, the zombies are now where they now have to go and fight them. And it was this time Bruce, Jackson and Anika that was fighting them, and we had Sammy helping out, like describing the narrative. They would shank some zombies around them. Now they couldn't roll properly, but it meant that they would add a +1 dice to everybody else's roll, which was pretty fucking neat, or at least it would have been if it actually fucking meant anything. Because they didn't do too well. I think at this point it was, you see, there were so many messed up rolls from this point onwards that I actually forget what happened. Like, Bruce was able to get out, and Nick was able to get out. Bruce messed up because he hit his head again. We all had a bit of a giggle about that. It was almost the same fucking roll. He was nearly broken. I'm trying to remember everything. As I said, it all happened so fucking fast. I was too busy like giggling. I think he might have actually been broken, so he should have actually been dragged out. But I was just so caught up in the moment that I forgot about it or whatever. And I don't really remember, because what would then happen is that everybody would get out, and technically speaking, that was the end of the fight. So I shouldn't have done any more. But the players kind of forgot about that, and they were trying to get away from the zombies before something would go wrong, and they demanded a scout roll again, to make sure that they felt safe. And I wasn't going to argue with them. If that's what they wanted to do, that's what they're going to fucking do. So I made them roll it, and everybody bar Sammy succeeded, because Sammy messed up the roll, meaning that we're back up to where we were again. And they rolled for the zombie attack, which I thought made sense here, because they'd gotten away, but the zombies were following them. So I think there's like, so I described it like there was some in like the woodworks or foliage around them, sort of thing. I can't remember exactly what happened to them. That was it. They were overwhelmed and they had their guts torn out, so they were dead, gone, completely vermouche. And because they saw the zombies again, and one of their friends died, I gave them 2 points of stress for that, 1 for each different thing. It's within the next round of combat that everybody fucking died again. So how do they all die? Well, I remember now, it was actually at this point that Jackson got broken, because he took some more damage, and he tried fighting zombies off. But he really hurt his arms. He was now broken, which narratively didn't make a lot of sense, but we just laughed and said that he hit his head for a third time because that was kind of becoming a bit of a meme at this point. Bruce had his face and eyeballs gouged out, and Nika had her throat torn out, and I think the flavour text of this was very interesting because unlike everything else, it was really short and straight to the point. You're bit in the neck, blood goes everywhere, you die. And I was encouraged to talk about what happened to the 6-month-old Pregger's baby, which I won't share here because I don't think YouTube and the listeners would appreciate it all that much. But it was gruesome, but they were satisfied. I assure you, I don't make a habit of laughing about zombie-eating babies. You know, it was, you had to be there, I guess, and just to appreciate the really dark, crude humour. And I kind of felt a little bad about all of that. Not the description, just the fact that what was meant to be like a simple exercise across some swampland ended up being the end of my players on the second fucking session, barely half an hour into the fucking game. But it doesn't really matter if I was too dissatisfied with this, because it was funny and we did have a lively time with it. But the players are happy, like that was just the end of their story, and like just joking about and like the dime and Nika's brave, you should have listened to me. It was a lot of fun. So the fact that the players had so much fun with it, that's all it matters really at the end of the day. But I do suppose having a TPK like this does highlight what I think is a great strength of the Walking Dead TTRPG, but also simultaneously one of its flaws. Like, you can die pretty fucking quickly with just a dice roll. Like, you could just be really fucking unfortunate with things, and that's the end of things. And I did offer them, it's like, hey, there's this other group that's not nearby, you can like pick up the story from their perspective. But no, they were fine with that. They wanted to experience more The Walking Dead, but they were happy with that being their story. They didn't want to know what I had planned or anything, which is absolutely fair enough. And somebody had recently got Telltale's Walking Dead, so he just booted it up and had fun with that as well, which was fucking great shit. Yeah, so I don't really recommend this game if you don't like the element of like dying on a fucking dice roll, because it's kind of old schooly, I suppose. But then again, you're playing a zombie apocalypse, where you see films and books and whatever that has this happen to characters all the time. So if you're not prepared to embrace the setting like that, what are you even fucking doing, really? Like, that's part of the fun, that's part of the drama, that you could die really easily. Like, you could go through this multi-part campaign being really heroic, doing this, that and the other, having epic dice rolls and wonderful failures, only to die because you were just careless, narratively speaking, had your neck bitten out. Or like Rick Grimes in the comic books, where he does all these things, he unites these big old civilizations together and would end up like bringing society to some decorum of normality, albeit through a different lens, only to get shot in his bed by some snotty little fucking teenager, which is just so poetic and beautiful. But I've talked about that already before in my review of the Walking Dead comic book series, which is probably going to appear on a card somewhere right about now. So what would have happened if the players had survived that as intended? Well, with the zombie thing, I was intending for some people to rescue them. It was going to be people from Poppy's group that was going to lead them away to a graveyard, which I had already decided with a dice roll. But it was going to be like a custom built one, i.e. their settlement wasn't too far away from their farm, that I had rolled up for them, as you may recall me talking about earlier on. And they were going to get accustomed to that group. They'll notice that it's mainly women and children here, that it's very lax here. Hopefully the group would feel like, hey, you need to fucking build this place up. There are walkers all over the place, or zombies, or whatever this group decided to call them, because they kept flicking back between walkers and zombies because the book calls them walkers, but they're really zombies. But that's absolutely fine, like, because you find within the comic book series that everybody calls them different things, and walkers is only used twice in the comics, which I find so fucking interesting, really, given how walkers is used pretty much everywhere. And I think it's really the TV show that really clung on to that, because probably the walkers sounded more unique and cool than lurkers, roamers, you know. It doesn't have the same gravitas, the same punch to the gut, as it were. So yeah, they would have met up with them, they would have done this and that, like gathering food and resources. It would have been peaceful a little bit. And then Hugh's group would have come along, and they're probably going to serve as the big fucking baddies. And I don't know, they might have rolled up another faction and felt the need was necessary, because when you're designing a campaign, you roll up to 3. I start with 2, just to keep things easier for myself, which I've mentioned already, or at least alluded to, because I do these in such huge parts, or distance between the parts. I don't exactly remember what I say half the time, so that's why I'm confirming myself here. But yeah, as I said, it doesn't really matter now because they died. They didn't want to carry on, not because of anything bad, because they were playing to such an extent that if they died, they'd stay fucking dead. And they were prepared to show up to other sessions and like interact with everyone and have fun if like part of the group died. But alas, they all hit the bucket in a violent, bloody, swampy death. And because none of them were taken out through a headshot or had their head removed, well, brains still intact, because you have some instances of like heads of walkers existed in jars and whatnot, they would come back as walkers. It should create a very interesting scenario, I think, if they were to carry on. But hey ho, shit happens and we all had a fun time, which is the main thing really. So, embrace the chaos.
So there you have it, a abridged version, I guess, of how one would be running the Walking Dead RPG. Yeah, it was a little frustrating because it wasn't as long as I would have liked it, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and so did the players. They did feel the terror and the drama of the Walking Dead and those human connections, whilst not as expansive as I would have liked. The players had a fun time, so I think at the end of the day, I think I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm just going to say this again, because I know I've been saying it a lot this video. The key to making this work is giving your players a reason to care in the world, because a huge part of The Walking Dead, especially in the comics, which is where I base a lot of my playing of this game, it's about carrying on, striving forward, and finding that reason to exist, because there's a lot of characters that fucking kill themselves. There's a lot of characters that just give up or think about giving up and just questioning the value of life, and Rick is one of them. Like, when he has that moment of realizing how exactly the virus works, that you have to kill them in the head, otherwise they come back. It's quite easy to fall into a nihilistic state of depression there, like, we are the Walking Dead, like, we're fucked, we just have to survive as long as we can before his like big apotheosis, as it were, to, you know, we are not the Walking Dead, there is something to be going for here. I think if you get that with the right group of people who are willing to embrace this properly, you can have a lot of fun with that. And I hate to be the sort of person that said, oh, there's a correct and a wrong way to be playing a TTRPG, but I do believe there is a correct and a wrong way of approaching the ethos and the themes and emotion of what the game is trying to do here, especially with The Walking Dead. I see a lot of people saying, oh, it's a great zombie TTRPG that you can use it for any setting. Yeah, true, but The Walking Dead, I feel, capitalizes on a lot of those human interpersonal dramas a lot more than other zombie flicks. It tends to focus on one or two larger themes or something a lot smaller. Like, watch any George A. Romero zombie film and there's like a very specific cultural theme it's trying to nail here. Whereas The Walking Dead is a human drama with zombies in the background. Like, Robert Kirkman has often said that that's how he constructed The Walking Dead. And I think you should really have that mindset of all those personal connections in mind. You really should be embracing the fact that you have characters that could die really easily. Even though I don't like it that every human character has 3 hit points, like, I think arguably some would be weaker and some would be a lot stronger. So maybe some could have 2 and some could have 4 hit points, for example, 2 and 5 or whatever. But it does highlight the fact that at the end of the day, the humans are fucking sponges and they can die pretty fucking quickly. It doesn't make them superheroes, it doesn't make them badasses, it makes them as physically human as possible. So it just constantly reminds you really have to be fucking careful and just pray that the dice gods like roll in your favour. But yeah, I think that's going to be it, really, because, again, there's more that I could add, but I feel it's going to be like a rehashing of the points that I've made already. Maybe if we had those, like, interpersonal human reactions, like those questioning and judging of morals, and what would have happened if the baby ended up being born, like, would they do their best to look after the baby, or leave it with the other group, or there could have been so many different ways that could have gone, and that could have, like, further added the conversation about morals and dilemmas, and maybe they could have gone a completely different way and gone with the group of women should be slaves and so should children. I mean, I kind of hope not, knowing what I know about these people, but they're doing such a terrific job of role-playing their characters, and they're like little bits of tension that are coming up with the group already that you never fucking know will just make somebody just snap and change their mind. But I think, again, it's just really fucking important there. You give the players something to work towards, you have them embrace the dramas and the horrors of playing a zombie apocalypse. And also, most importantly, you just have fun, because there was quite a lot of silly moments there and things that are a bit crass, risque, you know, different groups, different strokes sort of things, like applying like session 0 consents and all the rest of that as and when you see fit. But yeah, you're playing a game about The Walking Dead. It's really important to embrace the themes of The Walking Dead, and if you want to play a generic zombie game, there are other things out there that can acclimatise you to that sort of play style. The Walking Dead, yeah, very much fits very much within The Walking Dead frame. So, funny enough, and it does it rather well, in my opinion, although I do have my other criticisms about that book, but I've got a review of that coming out very soon. So tell me about your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Have you played The Walking Dead TTRPG? What do you like about it, if anything at all? Just, again, let me know about all those thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Now, I'm going to leave a special affiliate link to that TTRPG and the starter set from DriveThruRPG in the description below. And I'm also going to include some other zombie TTRPGs as well, in case you want something that's a bit more generic, that isn't so bound and tied to the Walking Dead ideology, game mechanics, etc. and so forth. Now, if you purchase those books with those affiliate links through DriveRPG, again, through those affiliate links, I get some of the money back because, as I keep saying, I'm an affiliate on DriveRPG, and that sort of coinage can help the channel go much, much further. And it's also great because it means that you get books, I get books, I'm able to run games for you lot, and you get content for free. So really, if my math is correct here, it means it's a win-win chicken dinner situation for you amigos. But what if you've got those books already and you want to get something else? You can copy and paste the magical affiliate code in the description and paste it in the URL in any DriveThruRPG or its sister sites before you add said item to your cart. And that helps as well because, again, affiliate stuff, it's all magic and cool and shit. Now, I understand that times are hard and all of that, especially in these really fucking trying times, and you may not be able to get hold of these books for one reason or another, be it PDF or physical. That's absolutely fine. Like, this is an optional thing. If you can do that, that'll be absolutely amazing. But if you can't do that, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it either. But what you should definitely do regardless is give the video a cheeky little thumbs up if you like content like this and want to see more The Walking Dead content on the channel. Subscribe to the Lore by Night channel if you want more horror content in general, and I'll see you on the next upload, wherever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.